did try to paint her out as the reason why Snow White flopped because of her expressing her political views, even though her co-star, who I shall not name, also had shared her political views. She still got invited to the Met Gala, but she will not be attending.
Need no man. She's not going to be dreaming about true love. She's dreaming about becoming the leader she knows she can be.
I don't think Disney anticipated that it really has a deep and strong emotional place in their childhoods and throughout their lives, and maybe that film from 1937 did not need to be reimagined.
Hollywood has a habit of forcing the narrative. They pick a fresh face, crown them the next big thing, and dump hundreds of millions into making that prophecy come true, whether audiences buy it or not. And few stories prove this broken system better than Rachel Zegler. Once hailed as the breakout star of West Side Story, Zegler was quickly handed the keys to Hollywood's most iconic roles: Snow White, The Hunger Games, even a lead in the prestigious Evita musical at London's Palladium. But instead of rising to superstardom, she's now the face of something far more uncomfortable: a career that's burning millions without ever really catching fire. The numbers? Brutal. The reviews? Mixed. The audience reaction? Ice cold. And as of now, Rachel Zegler's newest project is so empty you can book any seat in the theater. Front row, center stage, whatever you want. They're all available. How did it all go so wrong, so fast? This isn't a takedown. This is a wake-up call for the actress, for the studios, and for an entire system that still hasn't figured out how to earn audience trust in an era where attention spans are razor thin and star power isn't what it used to be. Because what happened to Rachel Zegler isn't just a flop, it's a warning sign, and we're about to break it all down. Let's start with the numbers, because Hollywood may love a good story, but at the end of the day, it lives and goes by the math. Snow White, the live-action remake starring Rachel Zegler, was supposed to be a guaranteed win. The original is one of Disney's most iconic properties. The brand recognition alone should have made this a safe bet. But behind the scenes, things were already spiraling. Initial production costs were reported between $260 and $269 million. Then came the extensive reshoots, unplanned, expensive, and absolutely essential due to early test screenings that flopped. By the time it hit theaters, the film was likely pushing $300 million or more in total costs. Now add another $100 million in global marketing expenses, yes, even with a toned-down press tour, and you're looking at close to $400 million invested into one film. And what did Disney get in return? Around $200 million at the global box office. That sounds decent, until you realize that theaters take a hefty cut, often 50% or more of ticket revenue, which means Disney might have walked away with $100 million at best. They didn't just underperform, they got slaughtered. But here's the kicker: the failure wasn't all on Zegler. Critics were quick to point fingers at the script, clunky dialogue, confused tone, and a complete misunderstanding of what made the original Snow White timeless. Rotten Tomatoes painted the picture perfectly: a critic score of 37% and an audience score that looks inflated based on how few people even showed up. And yet, somehow, in the middle of this mess, Disney still put Zegler front and center, as if just declaring someone a star would magically make them one. It's not just a mistake, it's a symptom. Studios are spending blockbuster budgets on unproven talent, without ever stopping to ask, does the audience even want this? After the Snow White disaster, there was still hope that Zegler could reinvent herself, a shift away from the box office into something more respected, something like live theater. Enter Evita at London's legendary Palladium Theatre. Zegler was cast as Eva Perón in a production that should have been a critical and commercial milestone. The marketing hyped her up as a Golden Globe winner, a breakout star, a triple threat. Every poster, trailer, and social media blast screamed, "This is a major deal," except nobody showed up. When tickets for the June performances went live, the traffic light seating map used to show demand lit up in solid green. Not just a few rows, every seat, every show, wide open. You could pick any spot in the house, even front row, center stage. It didn't matter. There was no competition. That kind of emptiness doesn't just happen. It's a signal, one the industry can't afford to ignore. Compare that to other productions running at the same time, like John Lithgow's show, which had rows already sold out weeks in advance. Zegler's draw? Practically non-existent. And this wasn't just bad luck. This was the harsh reality of manufactured fame colliding with real-world demand. Theater is different from film. You don't get to hide behind CGI or brand names. You either sell tickets or you don't. And when a massive London production can't move seats, despite being anchored by a supposed Hollywood it girl, the message becomes crystal clear. Audiences aren't rejecting just the projects. They're rejecting the narrative. Zegler didn't lose them because she lacks talent. She lost them because they never got to know her in the first place. No one asked for a Snow White reboot. No one begged to see her on stage. But the machine kept pushing, louder and faster. like forcing someone into a spotlight they weren't ready for. And this was the result. Now, here's where things get uncomfortable, not just for Zegler, but for the entire star-making machine behind her. Because even with all the marketing dollars, red carpet appearances, and headline-grabbing interviews, audiences never really connected. Think about it. Zegler has now headlined 3 major productions: West Side Story, Snow White, and Evita, and not a single one has proven she can draw crowds. Let's break it down. West Side Story was her breakout, directed by Spielberg, stacked with talent, and released to critical praise. But even with all that, it barely made a dent at the box office. Yes, pandemic-era conditions played a role, but plenty of other films managed to find an audience. This one didn't. Then came Snow White, arguably her biggest role yet. But as we already saw, the numbers were brutal, the reviews worse, and fan interest nearly non-existent. Now, with Evita, we've hit a different kind of failure. Not a streaming drop-off or mixed Rotten Tomatoes score, just silence. No buzz, no demand, no ticket sales. So what's the common thread? It's not just bad luck. It's that Hollywood tried to skip the part where audiences build a relationship with the performer. They treated Zegler like a pre-packaged superstar, skipping the slow grind, the supporting roles, the smaller projects where actors prove themselves one layer at a time. And in doing that, they missed something crucial. Audiences don't respond to being told who to love. They decide that on their own. You can't force a connection. You earn it by showing up in roles that resonate, delivering performances that feel honest, and building trust over time. Zegler didn't get that chance, or maybe more accurately, she didn't take that chance. Instead, her public image became about big roles, bold statements, and blockbuster headlines, but without the body of work to back it all up. And when the projects failed, there was no cushion, no prior wins to soften the blow. So now we're left with a growing disconnect. The industry insists she's a star, but the data says otherwise, and that disconnect is starting to cost real money. Worse, it's making audiences skeptical, not just of her, but of the entire hype machine surrounding young actors. So how did this even happen? Why does Hollywood keep forcing these artificial careers over and over again? Let's dig into that next. Hollywood loves a shortcut, and nothing feels more like a shortcut than trying to manufacture a star in a boardroom. You see it time and time again. A studio spots a fresh face, throws them into a tentpole project, and builds an entire marketing campaign around a fantasy. This is your next favorite celebrity. But here's the problem. Audiences don't buy into fantasy anymore. The days of blind celebrity worship are over. Viewers are savvier, more skeptical, and more connected than ever. They don't just want talent, they want authenticity. And most importantly, they want to feel like they discovered the star, not like they were handed one. But the studio system hasn't adapted. Rachel Zegler isn't the first, and she won't be the last. Remember Sam Worthington, Jai Courtney, even Taylor Kitsch? Each one was positioned as Hollywood's next leading man. Each one headlined major projects, and each one slowly disappeared as box office numbers failed to match the hype. It's a pattern, an expensive, reputation-damaging pattern. What's even more frustrating is that the alternative approach actually works, because we've seen it happen. Florence Pugh didn't become a star overnight. She worked her way up through critical darlings like Lady Macbeth and Midsummer before moving into Marvel territory. Timothée Chalamet didn't just wake up famous. He spent years building credibility with roles in Call Me By Your Name and Beautiful Boy. Zendaya? Same story. Started young, took her time, chose smart roles, built trust. They didn't explode onto the scene with billion-dollar budgets. They grew, naturally, strategically, gradually. And that's the difference. With Zegler, the growth never happened. Studios tried to skip the hard part. They skipped the relationship building, the audience development, the character arcs where you actually care about what happens next. Instead, they handed her a mic and said, she's the one, love her. But audiences didn't. Not because she lacks talent, but because she didn't earn their time. And now that the numbers are in, Hollywood is faced with an uncomfortable reality. You can't manufacture connection. You can't fake resonance. The faster they realize that, the fewer careers they'll ruin, and the more trust they'll rebuild with the audiences they claim to understand. If the productions didn't sink the ship, the PR tour sure tried. Before Snow White even hit theaters, Rachel Zegler's public comments became the story, and not in a good way. In multiple interviews, she openly roasted aspects of the 1937 classic. She called the prince stalker, said the story needed to be corrected, and described the remake as a modern independent take where Snow White doesn't need saving. Now, there's nothing wrong with wanting to update old stories, but there's a difference between modernizing and dismissing the very thing fans loved in the first place. Instead of building excitement, Zegler's words triggered a wave of backlash from audiences who felt like she didn't respect the legacy of the film she was starring in. You don't have to worship the source material, but if you publicly roast it, you're sending a message to its most loyal fans. This story, and by extension your nostalgia, doesn't matter, and that's not a good look when you're trying to convince people to spend $15 on a ticket. Actors who handle adaptations well know this. They honor the original, speak carefully, and walk the line between respect and reinvention. Think of how Henry Cavill talked about The Witcher, or how Andrew Garfield approached his return as Spider-Man. They knew fans were emotionally invested and treated that investment with care. Zegler didn't do that. Instead, she became the face of what critics already feared, a Disney remake that wanted the brand recognition but not the heart. Worse, the backlash started bleeding into onto her Evita press as well. Instead of highlighting her vocal range or performance training, the conversation kept circling back to Snow White, to the interviews, to the controversy. When an actor becomes more known for what they say than what they actually do on screen, that's a problem. And when even your supporters start questioning the narrative, the foundation begins to crack. This wasn't just a PR misstep, it was a branding disaster, because it reinforced the growing belief that Zegler wasn't a breakout actress at all. She was a marketing product trying to rewrite her own trailer. And while Disney was scrambling to spin the damage, another studio had already taken its own risk with a franchise that knew exactly how to sell. But even then, something didn't quite add up. Enter The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. This was supposed to be Rachel Zegler's redemption arc, the big-budget prequel to The Hunger Games, one of the most successful franchises of the last decade. She played Lucy Gray Baird, a central figure in the story. A flashy role, big screen time, emotional range. It was her chance to finally prove she could lead a blockbuster to success. And financially, the movie did all right. It grossed around $320 million worldwide on a $100 million budget. Respectable, profitable, clean. But here's the thing. It wasn't Rachel Zegler pulling in the audience. It was the brand. The Hunger Games came with built-in interest, a loyal fan base, and years of cultural impact behind it. In truth, they could have cast a mannequin in the lead role, and it probably still would have cleared $200 million. What's important is this. Despite all the promotion around Zegler's involvement, she didn't elevate the project. There was no Zegler bump. She didn't trend on social media the way Jennifer Lawrence once did. She didn't generate viral fan edits, interviews, or GIFs that lit up the internet. She was just there, a performer in the middle of a machine that would have kept running with or without her. Now compare that to someone like Florence Pugh in Don't Worry Darling, or Timothée Chalamet in Dune. Those performances turned decent films into talked-about events. They created conversation. Zegler's turn in Hunger Games? It came and went. That's not failure, but it's not star power either. What it proved is this. When Zegler is part of a proven brand, she doesn't hurt the project, but she doesn't lift it either. She doesn't bring in new viewers, spark momentum, or create that sticky, I need to see this again moment that truly bankable actors bring. And that's where the illusion shatters, because it's not enough to ride the wave of a franchise. To become a true star, you have to create waves of your own. Zegler hasn't done that yet, and the more studios try to place her in those positions, without the audience behind her, the louder the gap becomes. And now the question isn't what's next, it's how many more chances will she get, and more importantly, should she? So where does Rachel Zegler go from here? If this were 10 years ago, we'd already know the answer. A string of high-profile flops, lukewarm audience reception, and one painfully empty theater run? That would have been career destruction. But today's Hollywood doesn't operate like it used to. It's not about earning your spot, it's about who's already invested in you. And right now, the industry still seems determined to make Zegler work. You can see it in the way studios defend her. You can hear it in interviews, press write-ups, awards, circuit buzz. There's a quiet refusal to admit that maybe, just maybe, they bet too big, too early. But the numbers don't lie, and eventually, neither will the casting decisions. Because behind the scenes, the real shift is already happening. No official announcements, no headlines, just fewer offers, smaller roles, less visibility. It won't be a scandal, it'll be a slow fade. The same kind that quietly happened to so many next big things before her. But here's the twist. Zegler still has time. She's young, she's talented, she can act. The question is, will she pivot? Because if there's one path forward that actually works, it's this. Stop chasing billion-dollar blockbusters. Start rebuilding with projects that don't need to be massive. Find a sharp indie film. Take a gritty supporting role. Work with a great director, not just a famous one. Prove to audiences that she's not just a studio experiment. She's an artist. That's the formula that's worked for every actor who's been counted out and clawed their way back. Robert Pattinson did it. Kristen Stewart did it. Brendan Fraser did it. The only difference is they learned how to step back before stepping forward. But whether Zegler gets that chance, or even recognizes the need for it, is a story still being written. And time is running out. At the end of the day, this isn't just about Rachel Zegler. It's about what happens when Hollywood confuses exposure for connection. You can't fake momentum. You can't manufacture loyalty. And you definitely can't force people to care about a performer they've never had the chance to truly discover. Zegler's career so far reads like a case study in what not to do. Cast an unproven actor in huge roles. Ignore the audience's skepticism. Blame bad writing, bad timing, bad marketing, anything but the root problem. Then double down again and again, hoping the next one sticks. It's not sustainable, not for the studios, not for the actor, and not for the audience that's tired of being told who to root for. The truth is, Zegler might have been incredible in smaller roles. She might have grown into a true fan favorite, but instead, she became a symbol of Hollywood's most stubborn delusion, that fame can be engineered like a Marvel movie or a Netflix algorithm. It can't. Fame isn't given. It's earned, over time, with patience, through work that actually moves people, not just tries to impress them. If there's anything to take away from this story, it's that talent isn't enough. What What matters is how you use it and whether you're willing to build it, brick by brick, instead of being airlifted to the top. Because when you skip the climb, you miss the most important thing, the audience. And without them, there's no stardom, no box office, no standing ovation, just empty seats, and an industry still wondering what went wrong.